Have you ever wondered what no one is telling you about scaling agents? Well, you no longer have to because May with Writer is going to enlighten us with this next presentation.
How's everyone doing? Listening a little bit to the previous conversation, it is really exciting to see how all of the native generative AI companies are really converging on just so many of the same ideas. And there is a prevailing idea inside of Writer. For those who don't know who Writer is, we are a platform primarily serving the enterprise for building, scaling, supervising agentic AI. And the prevailing idea inside of Writer is that so much of what we consider software today is really going to collapse into just three big product surfaces: agent building, agent discovery, and agent interaction. So it doesn't surprise me that the first couple sessions today have got some of the ideas that I'm going to expound upon today with you all. It is no surprise, right? The software development lifecycle techniques and protocols have defined everything and all the ways in which we have developed systems to date. But these are not going to be techniques and methodologies that serve agentic AI development. We have been in the space for 5 years now, building a full stack generative AI platform from the LLMs up to the application layer. And what I would love to walk everybody through is what it's going to mean to actually take these much more non-deterministic technologies and get them to produce really powerful outputs and impact inside of the enterprise. It's incredibly exciting that we now have got this explosion of tooling, right? Everybody's got an AI studio, every platform's got an agent builder that allows us to take an idea to a prototype in 90 seconds. No Figma, no design, no PMs even, right? We just heard. But it is really, really nightmarish to actually scale this into production in the kind of systemic way that we all want to get to. And what we have learned at Writer is that really scaling powerful agentic systems into production, especially in highly regulated environments, is going to require a very different approach. We can't build agents the same way we build software. It's categorically different. Agents don't reliably follow rules. They are outcome driven. They interpret, they adapt, and the behavior really only emerges in real world environments. And we've got now 350 plus Fortune 1000 customers. By the end of the year, more than half of the Fortune 500 will be scaling agents with Writer. And we've learned quite a bit from these customers around how to build agents that really scale. What's very exciting, and it's got boards and CEOs and executives leaning in, is that we now have agents that can touch revenue. And among the agentic systems that we have built over the past year include client onboarding at a major bank that has resulted in $600 million worth of new upsell pipeline. Simply, this is actually a very hard problem, because when you onboard a new customer, you can actually pre-onboard them into multiple product lines through agents. Really, really exciting use cases. But we don't yet have a really well understood methodology inside of our customers for how to scale agentic AI. And I'd love to kick off that conversation. Let's make this a conversation because I would love to get folks' ideas out in the room as well. So let's start with the very first shift. Being able to go from requirements to an outcome-based approach. With agents, our systems and the way that we build agentic systems, our approach to it is very outcome-driven. In the bank example that I gave, the goal is to onboard a customer and get the right pieces of information. Yes, it's unstructured data. We're going to structure it, right, and get it into the right systems, but really have a dialogue with that end user. And so instead of scoping a static set of rules for that agent, we were able to get to high quality by defining what good behavior for that agentic system looks like and working backwards. We see a lot of these kinds of examples in legal contexts. A lot of folks use the Writer platform to build contract review agents and contract redlining agents. And if you go to a customer and say, let's build an agent that helps your lawyers, it is way too open-ended to actually get agentic done. And we still see so much of that happening where customers come to us and say, we want to build agents for this, that, and the other function. We really turn that conversation around when we build successful agents and say, what are we trying to do? Are we trying to reduce contract redlining time and review time? If that is the goal, then you actually end up building an agentic system that can be objective-oriented, goal-oriented in a different way. This is a massive unlock for teams, but it is a very different way of thinking. We need to be able to work with folks on the business side who can dream up of the ways they want to work, right, versus bending the agent to the ways that work has always been done. And so this is a big mindset shift that we encourage. Secondly, this is a big one. In the traditional software development lifecycle, you are designing for a deterministic set of steps, right? A series of very, very predictable steps. And it's input in, input out in a more deterministic way. But with agents, you're really seeking to shape agentic behavior. So you are seeking less a controlled flow and much more to give context and guide decision-making by the agent. A lot of folks have come to hear writers say often in the market that process mapping is the new prompt engineering. And we've got lots of fun tools in Writer where you can ingest a standard SOP or workflow or simply type the flow that you want and an agentic blueprint unfurls. But that's really the very first step, this lift and shift of an existing workflow to agents is what we need for that initial scaffolding of the business logic around the agentic blueprint. But this is why we call them blueprints, not workflows. We want everybody to feel okay designing guardrailed thinking loops within those processes that can really get the most out of the agentic collaboration. For example, in the redlining contract example, their existing workflow was not to redline and to propose multiple versions of alternative language that the end party, right, the party on the other side might accept. But we actually can design a reasoning loop for the agentic system that can actually do that, and we did. And so the kind of thinking that we need on the customer side to enable this kind of building is very different. We need folks who can do the process mapping, right? Thinking about the process that exists today, right, mapped against the kind of behavior that we can really elicit from these agents. So it is very true that process mapping is the new prompt engineering, but there is a creativity required in designing systems that really make the most out of this kind of non-deterministic behavior that we've seen be incredibly, incredibly successful. Next, we have to figure out how to scale agents. And right now, in the vast majority of the enterprises that come to us, we are still building agents one at a time. anyone can build an agent, but who owns it? Who audits it? Who ensures that it is still relevant? It is still producing what is expected. There is a scaling cliff that folks get to very, very quickly without a new approach to building and scaling agents. There is a cliff that folks are going to get to when their organization's ability to manage agents responsibly really outstrips the pace of the development happening department by department. People are certainly afraid of the sprawl, of overlapping logic, of redundant workflows, of hidden access risks. And without shared structure, agents will be inconsistent, hard to govern, and pretty impossible to scale. And so what we've developed at Writer to help teams counter this is, think of it as a design system for agents, shared components, whether they are for evaluation or for human prompting or for feedback and escalation logic that can be shared across an organization. And that is absolutely, this reusability, this portability is what's required to get agentic to scale. Next. Traditional QA testing versus evaluation. In traditional software, QA is much more objective. We're writing test cases, we are checking them off, a user acceptance testing list, we're validating whether the code behaves exactly as written. And if it passes the QA, it's shipping, right? We're shipping that code. But with agents, we got to tuck in a evaluation framework into that more traditional QA process that takes into account the way we need to evaluate the agent once it's in the wild. Because the agent behavior isn't binary, and it's going to break in non-obvious ways. And the question isn't, did it break? Because it will. But did it behave well enough to be trusted? And did the fail-safes work? And the testing is much more about evaluating outcomes and intent than did the code break. So instead of pass-fail, right, in evaluation, what we're asking is, did the agent follow the intended path? Did the fallback logic trigger when it should have? Did we escalate confidently? And did that escalation path work? And did we actually help the user accomplish the task? And the goal here isn't perfection. It is behavioral confidence, because there is a lot of subjectivity in this here. And we see this so many times. We build a onboarding agent or an agentic system for RFPs with lots of shared components, and you roll it out team by team, and everybody wants to use it a little differently. And that's great, and that's okay if you actually have the scaffolding and the reusability around this, and you're able to set up different evaluation frameworks to let that personalization happen. It's a very exciting way to think about software tooling. Next, continuous iteration. With agents, you are never done. Agentic AI challenges the concept of done, and that is very challenging in the enterprise because we have not set up development teams and product management teams and embedded IT teams to help the business think about technology in this way. And a lot of the tension, there is a lot of tension between IT and the business when it comes to not just agentic AI, but generative AI in general. A lot of it comes from, this is not good enough, when will it be good? And what we have seen in agentic AI development is if the business does not truly understand how iterative this process is, it's a constant game of tennis that just wears down each side until they don't want to play anymore. With agentic AI, it is not about launching the perfect agent. It's about launching them safely and learning fast and iterating over and over and over. And it is truly building the plane while flying it kind of approach. And that means we need a new kind of version control. A version control for behavior, not just for code or simple prompt changes, which is what many people are building. Traditional software is versioned at the code level, And there's a lot of mature tooling to support it. When something breaks, you're inspecting the diff, right? You're isolating the issue and you're rolling back. But that model does not map cleanly to agents. You can update an LLM prompt and watch the agent behave completely differently, right? Even though nothing in the Git history actually changed. But the model weights shifted, retrieval indexes get updated, tool APIs evolve, and suddenly the same prompt, right, does not behave as expected, and you're actually getting vastly different outputs. And it can feel like we are debugging ghosts, or that we've got to start over when we don't get this right. And what we have seen is scaling beyond a few dozen agents absolutely requires scaling version control here. It's essential to controlling the chaos. We need a version control for, yes, the prompts and the system messages, but also the tool schemas, the handlers, the memory configs, the model setting, and absolutely full execution traces across the inputs, the outputs, the reasoning steps, the tool calls, and how the user interacted with each one of those steps if there is a human in the loop step. So an absolutely brand new paradigm that is required for this. Lastly, maintenance. It's a fallacy with agents. And this is a continuation of the previous point, but once you've actually launched into production, right? You can't just sit back and watch. In software, maintenance tells us what happened, right? Errors and logs and latency. Performance is measured in binary terms. But that's not enough for agents. We need escalation logic at the points that make sense in the agentic system, or else the agents are going to fail silently or not actually alert predictably. You need lifecycle governance because these agents cost money, and actually understanding if the agent is contributing in a way that is ROI positive, right? You could end up with agents that are running long after they are useful, especially as building agents gets easier and easier, right? Companies like Ryder are making it vastly easier month on month to build these, and we need the lifecycle governance more than ever. We call this part of the platform supervision. And so much of our supervision features and functionality are about, should this have happened? And we've introduced a new set of primitives to govern agents that we think are going to become widespread in the industry. Semantic outcome tracking to evaluate the alignment, so not just the flat output, but a constitution of sorts. Behavioral timelines to audit the decisions over time. So think of that as a new UX approach to the reams of data that get produced as a result of so much tracking. Confidence thresholds and escalation loops that are tied to those confidence thresholds. And even the traditional observability tools that are inevitably going to build extensions for agentic supervision. And we plan to integrate with all of them. We've learned so far that agents are much better off using the agent builder itself to create custom dashboards and QA pipelines using some of those primitives. And doing so, you get a maintenance capability that's much more aligned with the actual objective of the agentic system that you are building. I want to close on collaboration, because so much of the way that we have built software traditionally has to get disrupted for the era of agentic AI. Most organizations are not set up for the deep iterative collaboration that needs to happen across teams for agentic AI. the promise of agentic AI to really be realized in the enterprise. There is a lot of tension inside of the enterprise as a result of some of the things that you see on the slide. IT not being close enough to the workflows and the subject matter experts to build in a way that gets to a V1 that people really want to engage with, right? Iteration is everything. Speed to a V1 that shows the promise is everything. But to iterate from there to production grade really requires the business to feel ownership. And it's great that we can now go idea to prototype in 90 seconds without PMs and designers and Figma, but there is still a PM mindset that's required to pull out of the business so they understand the type of iteration that's required. And IT, unfortunately or fortunately, depending on your perspective, right, is going to be left holding the bag if they don't lead their business counterparts into that new way of building for the org. So that's it.
Everyone give it up one more
Thanks,
time
guys.
for May. Thank you.